Abby Bosco, welcome. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm pumped for this combo today.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about the nitty gritty ins and outs of defense. You know, it's something that I don't feel is talked about a lot.
hmm
And really specifically for the girls' game and really getting into the minutia of what it takes to be a good defender and then all the little things that come with it as well. I want to get into all of that. But before we do, I want to get a little bit of background. I'm going to read a couple of your accolades. There's a lot, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through them all, but I'm going to give just some, high level stuff really quick. We're going to go through some things and then we'll, dial it in. So, number one, college career, University of Pennsylvania 2018 to 2021, University of Maryland 2022 to 2023, professional career, Athletes Unlimited Lacrosse Pro. Got my athletes. Look at this hat right
I
here.
love it.
Rocking it. A couple other things. All American honors. Okay, you've been recognized as an All American, highlighting you as one of the premier defenders in college lacrosse. You've served as captain at both Penn and Maryland. You showed off all your leadership skills on the field. And then professional success, dude, you played in Athletes Unlimited, right? And you demonstrated your defensive abilities and skills. It's been baller. Now, let me go into some career honors. Now, this is a lot. I'm going to just pick a couple of them because, I mean, it's a long list right here, Abby. Okay. So 2023 IWLCA second team All American. I'm going to just skip a couple. 2023 USA Lacrosse Magazine preseason National Defender of the Year. 2023 Torton Watch List. No, watch out now. Take it easy. 2022 Big Ten Defender of the Year. Okay. Let me just keep going down because it's too many. 3 times Big Ten Defender or Defensive Player of the Week. 2022 Team Captain. 2022 Inside Lacrosse Preseason Third Team All American. 2020 Academic All Ivy. Okay. And then the last one I'll bring up is your Ivy League Defensive Player of the Week, February 17th, 2020. So, Abby, it sounds like you are a defensive baller. Just a little bit. You don't have to say, you don't have to, that's kind of like awkward. And
Having
like, when are
fun
you?
with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Abby, tell me how you got into lacrosse.
Yeah. So, I mean, not like a crazy story or some crazy weird thing, but I grew up in Suffern, New York, which was kind of when I was growing up, it was like a hotbed for lacrosse. The women's team had went to the state championship, had a lot of girls consistently going to college to play lacrosse. So we had a really good Suffern youth program.
Mhm.
So basically they start having clinics when you're literally like 4 to 5 years old. And it's, you know, bring a stick if you have one, don't bring one if you don't have one. We'll provide you with the one and
Yeah.
we'll literally just teach you how to catch and throw. And my mom, I was fortunate enough that my mom signed me up for one of those when I was 4 years old. And
Oh, wow.
I
Four
think
years
that
old.
I just, yeah, 4 years old. So I think
Okay.
from that point on, I just fell in love with it and kind of stuck with it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, from the age of 4 to, the age you are now, you just stuck with lacrosse. That's all you did.
No, I actually played like so many sports when I was younger and like softball, baseball, a little bit of everything, but then all like from elementary school until I went to Penn to play lacrosse, I played soccer and basketball all until
Oh,
college. So
get out of here.
I really loved soccer and basketball also.
What position of basketball did you play?
I was point guard.
Get out of town.
More
Abby,
of
you
a
got
passer.
handles?
More of a
Okay.
passer than a shooter for sure. Like, let me
So let,
pass it to you, you make the shot.
let me ask you this. Did you watch the Olympics and did you watch, most of Team USA's, rise to gold?
I did.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. What did you think about the performance?
It was really good. I think like I mean I the men's championship game and then the game to the gold medal match freaked me out a little bit. I think they were down by
Burn me
like
up. Mm-hmm.
12 going almost going into the fourth. They were down by like 8 going into the fourth, but
Yeah.
it's really impressive like the dominance that they've had recently and just continue to field such a talented group of women and men for the men's team too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the women, I mean, there's no competition for the women right now. It's like they're just steamrolling everybody.
Exactly.
It's going to take some more time for the rest of the world to catch up. I think
Yep.
there have been, um, great strides from a lot of these other countries
Oh, for sure.
in the basketball sense. That kind of like translates over to, and we can get into this a little bit later. It translates over to like what we're going to see in 2028 and what we just seen, from the world championships. Right now we could say that USA, Canada, Haudenosaunee, those are the top three big dogs, right?
Yep.
There ain't nobody touching them, right? They got to be in a pool all by themselves, right? Even right now, what's going on in China? Team USA steamrolling baseball, 33 to
Yep.
0.
That's wild.
That's a little wild, okay? But I mean, hey, that's sports, at a high level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's more matchmaking than anything else, but whatever. I'm not going to
They're
comment on that.
talented.
I'm going to
Those
just say
girls.
they're talented and they showing all of the skills and all their talents in that 33 to 0. But again, also, England just beat Jamaica, I think 33 to 3 or whatever. So
It's crazy. Like the scoring production, like to score 33 goals in a game is no matter who you're playing, that's not easy. So that's impressive.
yeah, so it's wild stuff. So let's do this. I have a rapid fire question round, and then we're going to get into all this nitty gritty. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope so too. Okay, number one, what's your favorite thing about lacrosse?
The memories. I think like on and off the field. But there's like no better feeling than winning a huge game and like celebrating with your teammates. Sorry, rapid fire, right? I can't
Rapid
explain.
fire. That's okay. I mean, hey, that one was kind of a drawn out question, so
It
don't worry
hits
about that.
home.
Yes, it does. It does. It really, the memories is one of the best, things about sports in general. Uh,
Yeah.
your go-to food before a game.
Night before chicken parm pasta every single night.
Chicken parm pasta every single night? Are you
It
carbo
got,
loading like Michael Scott?
oh yeah. Biggest carbo loader on planet Earth. Like you will never not catch me having pasta before the night before a game.
I love it. I love it. You and my wife have a lot of things in common. Um, your go-to song before a game.
Girl on Fire, Alicia Keys.
Girl on fire. Whoa, that gets you pumped. All right. Alicia Keys in the house. All right. Marvel or DC?
That's hard, Marvel.
Well, I'll give you a better question. And we'll separate into two categories.
Okay.
The movie universe and then the comics. So we'll start with movies, Marvel or DC.
So you're gonna be mad at me for this answer. I really don't watch many movies. So I
That's
really
okay.
honestly haven't seen them, which
Well,
is
here,
bad.
that's okay. No, I mean, the last slate of Marvel movies has not been good, and DC
Yeah,
has been
that's what I've
trash
heard.
for a while. Okay, let me ask this. Favorite genre of movies?
Rom-com. I love like a comedy movie.
The,
Funny.
the Proposal? That's up your alley?
Great.
No. You and my wife be friends. All right. Favorite season. Now, not in terms of sports, but just favorite season.
Summer, hands down.
Really? Okay. Like the humidity, like the heat. Love
I
it.
love it.
Now, this one, I don't know if this one's going to apply, but I just threw it in there. Chick-fil-A or Shake Shack?
Chick-fil-A.
Oh my gosh. Let's air pound. There you go. I love it. Chick-fil-A all day. Yeah, we just got a Shake Shack down the street. It's just not the bee's knees. I mean,
No.
no, I'm sorry for all those Shake Shack fans. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Movie or book?
I want to get into reading, but movie for
Movie.
right now.
I'm a movie buff. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah,
I enjoy the books. When I can get through a whole book for sure, but definitely movies.
exactly.
Country life or city life?
You know what? I'm living the city life right now, so I'm gonna go with it.
Yeah, yeah. Typically people get older, they go to the country after a while. We want to go to the country. We want dogs, cats,
One
chickens,
day.
pigs, cows. Yeah, we want it all. Coffee or tea?
Unfortunately, I'm addicted to coffee.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm not gonna lie. So am I. Bam. Got those
Yep.
too. There you go. Starbucks in the house. All right. Favorite coffee at Starbucks?
Oh, so I have a game my game day coffee is a little bit different than my day to day. I like to keep
Really?
it so my game day coffee is a iced cold brew with a splash of almond milk and just the caramel drizzle.
Okay.
But then I usually get like a oat milk shake and espresso.
Okay. Okay. An espresso just need that little extra shot right there.
Yeah, I am a huge Dunkin' girl though, I won't lie.
You like Dunkin'?
Starbucks on game day, but pretty much every other day of the week, I'm a Dunkin' girl.
Wow. Okay. We don't have any Dunkins by us, so I haven't been able to try it. Um, yeah, I saw this one crazy video from Dunkin'. They were putting like 5 pumps of sugar in there. I was like, dang, that's a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
So in that video. Um, Last one. Okay, Biggie. Disney Plus or Netflix?
Well, doesn't Disney Plus come with something else?
With Hulu, with ESPN, but those are additional, just straight up Disney Plus.
Netflix.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I
But
got
if
a
you
kid.
include the other two, then I would pick Disney Plus.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I mean, it's the catalog's totally different. I mean, with Netflix, you can get, family, documentary, action, well, you can get whatever. Disney, you can do that, but it's the Disney brand. Anyways, well, you survived the rapid fire round. A round of applause. Round of applause for you. Absolutely. So, um, you know, the reason why I reached out to you too, Abby, is because obviously you're a great defender. You have so many different accolades, right? You played at the highest level. And I really wanted to get your perspective and your comments and your guidance on just defensive elements. Now, when I was thinking about setting up this interview, I said, you know what? This is going to be a little bit different than the other guests that I've had on and the topics that we've had because defense is so kind of broad and like, what are we going to niche down on? But as I'm going through your individual accolades and achievements, I noticed a couple of things that I kind of want to dial in on, and we could kind of start there. Is that you weren't only, say, a defender that played in set defenses and man and zone and backer and all that stuff, but you were actually on the circle as well for a lot of your career, and you
Mhm.
got a lot of ground balls. So I said, you know what? Why don't we start there with how did you end up on the circle? You're winning draws, right? Maybe not taking the draws. You're not a center, but you're on the circle. You're boxing out, right? Talk to us or fill me in. Let me ask this question actually. How did you end up on the circle?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I was a midfielder actually, and all
Oh,
throughout high school. Actually, my first like year and a half, 2 years at Penn, I played midfield as well.
oh, okay.
But I was always like in college, I was always more defensive focused, and then like my junior year, it was like like it was like midfielder, but more defensive focused, fully defense. So it like
So you were
progressed
basically a D midi.
for a lot. Like I
Yeah.
did play offense part of my freshman. Like I would occasionally go on offense freshman and sophomore year, like play full midi, but it was definitely like I was better at the defensive end or like more valuable, I guess if you
Yeah.
want to say. Know your role.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Know your
Um,
strengths, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So I was on the circle in high school, but then you get to college and like you are with the best of the best. Like you're a freshman. There are girls who have been circle players in college for 3 years. So I wasn't really I didn't go on the circle much in the beginning of my college career, but then kind of my sophomore year, they realized like I like to pride myself in like my scrappiness and my quickness and my ground balls, and I think that my coaches saw that, and there were certain opponents that we played where they were like, this girl's really scrappy on the draw, like who can we put on the draw that is it's literally like I would have like matchups on the draw essentially.
Yeah.
Like do not let this girl get the ball off the draw.
Oh, for sure. For
So,
sure.
I started doing that some games and then it was like working out really well. I think something that I also like people will say like I don't know how you do this. I was like fascinated with the draw and the technique behind it. It's like it's literally like a game. Like I would kind of study it. Like I became a student of it. I would be like, okay, like I know that like when her feet are facing this way and her hips are pointing to the 50, she can only get the ball in certain positions. So like that
Mm,
allowed me to not only know where like are I knew my draw takers wins and losses, but I also knew like if she's lining up against this opponent, like these are her go-to draws. So if I have to play this opponent's win, if they're winning it, I know where it's going. So I think that I just kind of, especially when I moved to defense, like in between the 30s, I missed that part of the game. So being on the draw circle, I like took a lot of pride in.
yeah. I'm just taking some notes right here. A couple of questions on that. Number one, how much did film study come into play with recognizing, where the ball was going to be going, recognizing those patterns, recognizing, what that center likes to do in terms of placement, right? How much did that come into play? Like scouting, essentially.
Honestly, huge. Like I also am like a huge believer in film. Like that's like we talked about movies. I'm like in college, like sounds so nerdy, but we were a bunch of lax rats and like I would watch film. I loved watching like whatever game was on TV, I loved watching or like whoever we were playing next, like pull up some film on them. And then also obviously our coaches would clip us film, like scout. But I would say like watching the draws of the team we were playing, like from their previous games and stuff, was a huge proponent. And I think like it's all about like the preparedness and
Yeah,
being prepared and knowing. But then there is also that level of like once you get on the field though, like you just gotta like play the ball and keep your eye on it. And I think
for sure.
that's a lot of it too. Like having getting up to the circle and like having this mentality that I'm gonna win this draw and no one's getting in my way
For
and
sure.
that like eye on the ball and a lot of times and you'll see it it's like our team out hustled the it's like all about that
Yeah.
heart and hustle and just like the want to get the ball truthfully and like what I learned too is never give up on it like you could be 5 yards behind someone but the amount of times people like think you're on their back and they fumble a ground ball and then it's behind them and you're right there
Yeah.
so it was like learning all those little nitty gritty things.
Well, I think that's super important. I want to really dial into that specific thing, which we're talking about is heart and not giving up and being scrappy. I mean, I coach a lot of kids. So just a little bit of background, just so you know. I've coached club, I've coached high school club, middle school. I've coached rec teams, I've ran a league, I do a whole bunch of training. I mean, I've done this specifically with lacrosse, and I've coached all the other sports as well. But for the last almost 10 years, I've had thousands of kids come through my training programs, through my leagues, through my camp, whatever it may be. And especially when we talk about defense, that is one of the biggest things that I always tell young defenders is like, look, if you get beat, that doesn't mean you're out of the game. Like you got to stay in it. You got to be aware. You got to understand that that girl can fumble, drop it. I mean, it doesn't matter if she just went 100 yards on a clear. She could drop the ball because she's so dang tired. You know what I mean? So you got to stay in the game. So that leads me to my question. Can you teach heart? Is that something that you can teach or is that something you got to have?
Oh, that's a good question. I, if I had to go with an answer right now, like I would say you can't necessarily teach it. Maybe you can bring it out of someone. Maybe it's like dormant in there and you can light a fire under them. But it is true. Like I definitely think like there are people who have it, people don't. I don't know if you can teach it.
Yeah, I'm on the opinion you can't really teach it. You
Mhm.
know, um, you either got it or you don't. And I like what you just said. Like sometimes you got to draw it out a little bit, let people know, hey, it's okay to be scrappy. It's okay to be a savage, right?
Yeah.
Now, if that's not your thing and you're a little bit more passive, well, then maybe that's just not the position for you. Again, going back to what you said, know your strengths, right? Know your weaknesses, know what you're really good at. You know what I mean? Maybe you're not an aggressive, talkative person, right? But your slides are good, right? Your individual defense is good, right? Maybe you operate better in a team environment. That's not your thing. So, you got to really know yourself. Because the hard thing, I mean, I think everybody in competitive sports should have a level of grit. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if you don't, you're going to really, struggle, especially against people who are about that life, watching film, scrappy, just are hungry for it.
Yeah.
Again, it's in for the parents out there too. you got to understand that. You got to know your kid. It's like, do they demonstrate that level of savagery that comes with training? Or
Yeah.
do your kids like to just go out on the field by themselves outside of practice and just train, go run for no reason?
Yeah.
If not, I don't know if they got it. And so, that's also from the coach's perspective, the parents' perspective, the community's perspective. It's like maybe not putting undue pressure on this kiddo that's just not demonstrating those things. Anyways, that's a whole different conversation on training. We can go into that later. But yeah, I mean, I think it's so important that whoever coaches you put on the circle, they got to have a level of just intensity, scrappiness, grit, just a desire to get that ball. Like, I'm lining up against this girl. Let me tell you what I'm thinking. I'm getting the ball. Ain't no way she get it. Like, I'm just going after it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even if I don't get it, I'm gonna get it on the second try. You know what I mean? Like, that's got to be the mindset that you step onto the field with. And if you have people on your team like that, then put them on the circle. They may not be the most polished. They might not be the fastest.
Yeah.
But they could definitely do some things.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about ground balls, because that's an interesting thing. Like, that's a skill that, in my opinion, a lot of people don't practice.
Yeah.
Um, the most glamorized skills for any position, and this applies for any position: attack, mid, defense, always shoot. If you can't pick up a ground ball, especially at speed or in traffic, you're in trouble. Especially when, off the draw, if you take the draw, you get in these little scraps where, there's 6 people in there trying to get the ball. You got to box out, right? You got to goose it sometimes. Talk to me. How do you train ground balls? Like, how do you get good at scooping them up? I mean, I kind of gave the answer away, but how do you get good at scooping them up through pressure?
Yeah, I mean there's like obviously you can practice it and you can rep it out, but I do think like there is that level of like determination and grit to kind of be the last one to come up with it. But I also honestly there's certain aspects of lacrosse that I really credit a lot to playing basketball all growing up.
Mm.
I think like ground balls and certain things like that, especially as a defender, like a lot of times it's like shot, hit off the goalie, and now it's like coming back. A lot of it's reaction time. So I think like in my training, I work a lot on my reaction time and just like getting my, whether it's ladders, I have these like fun things called, I don't know if you've ever heard of blaze pods.
Yeah, the light things that you get. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I do those a lot with like my trainer, but just working on reaction time. But then also like doing when I'm practicing ground balls, like sometimes I'll do them off like a brick wall so
Yeah.
that I never know which, like it hits one brick and it goes like all the way over there. It hits one brick, it comes straight down and up. So not just like rolling the ball out and going, but then also like when I am doing it, it's like full speed and I pretend that there's someone behind me. So it's like I'm not, if I'm not out there with someone else and it's just myself, when I roll it out, it's like, okay, you pick up the ground ball, but then you have 3 seconds and you need to run away out of it. So whether that's like straight back towards the defensive end, say, or you do like some sort of I'm like turning, switching hands, but like I always make some move after I pick up the ground ball. But I do think like a lot, it's just repetition and practice, like getting outside, practicing it and practicing it on different surfaces. Like in my backyard, I would go on grass, I would go to the field and I would go on turf. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say. I feel like different things work better for different people, but I definitely do credit a lot of like my defensive abilities to playing team basketball and soccer all growing up as well.
Oh, for sure. I think those are great transition sports. Those skills definitely translate over, specifically on the basketball end, because you're boxing out, right? You trying to get that
Yeah.
rebound. And so when we get in these little traffic jams in the sport, this is one thing I'm always talking about is like, look, let's go for position first. Let's get our body in front, and then let's look to get that ball, because let's just say we're going and we're side by side in a race. Well, we have a 50-50 opportunity to get that thing unless we're like super quick, right? But to turn into like a 90-10, let's seal them off and then put our body in position so that we can get an easier win as opposed to a harder win. Now, when we get into those traffic jams where it's like 4 to 5 people or something like that, scooping up a ground ball, sticks are flying everywhere. That's a little bit of a harder situation. How do we train that? How do we train getting that ball, right? Or not getting that ball, right? Because, goosing now is an option if you have your teammates in position, because that's like a whole nother, let me talk about that really quick. Goosing it out in a traffic jam is not necessarily a beginner skill set. You guys got to have to kind of like train your mind to know that that's an option, and seeing your teammates is good. But talk specifically, how do I get better if I'm a defender or an attacker, anybody really? How do I get better at getting that ball? Like, give me some drills too in a 4 to 5 person traffic jam. What's like the protocol there? How do I train that?
Yeah, I think like so a drill that I would do a lot growing up, like in practice and stuff too, was like you would have it would say be a group of four, and three people would have their sticks like on the ground over the ball. And your job was to full speed run through the ball. They were like checking at you. They're first of all, they're covering the ball to start. Then they can swing at you if you like pick it up and then hang your stick. So I think it's just like putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations. I always also am like a big proponent of like play it as you would in practice. So like you're only going to learn to goose it out or things like that if you do it in practice. So whenever I was like in practice and the ball hit the ground, even if it wasn't near me, we always say like hunt in packs. So like, and I remember vividly like one play during AU, it was like I knew my teammate, she was alone. There were two girls on her back and she was going for a ground ball. And I'm like, I'm with you, I'm with you. And she heard my voice and just flicked it to my direction. And I was the only one in that vicinity. So it's like, obviously, it's not something that like I did in elementary school, middle school, even in high school. It's like definitely more at like this college pro level. But it's like, I think goosing it out to a teammate comes a lot with just like if your teammate's talking or not and you are comfortable and you know that they're going to get it and have your back. But I would say just doing, and another drill too was like competitive ground balls. So like different variations, like maybe it's literally just 2v2, your backs are turned, the ball gets thrown over you and someone yells go, you both turn around and have to react to where it is. And then we would also do one where it was like three people were going, the two on the outsides were on the same team. The one in the middle started like a yard ahead, and like it was her versus them two.
Yeah.
So like play just like learning how to strategically, and like that's a good one for goosing it out because obviously if one of you's about to get it or with them trying to maybe flick it in the other's direction where they're completely alone. But just like super competitive drills where it's like, okay, there is no empty stick checking in this drill. Like you can do it as much as you want. Because if you can pick up a ground ball being empty stick checked, you're going to be able to do it at ease when you're in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Two things with that stuck out to me. Number one, you got to have a good communication, right? Like with your teammate there. Hey, I got you. I'm right here, right? Get you the ball. Number two, you got to build up your situational awareness skills. So we kind of term that as lax IQ as you grow and you progress. For those young players out there, how do you actually build up knowing what to do and when to do it? Well, you got to play more and you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations in order to build that skill. And you should be saying, as you're going through a rep in practice, this is what I'm looking for. I'm going to try and see my teammate. I'm going to see what the options are. I'm going to see if they're there or they're not there, right? That's how we're building that. And for some kiddos, it takes a little longer to learn, but everybody can get there, right? The other thing that you brought up was you got to be competitive, right? You got to do that. Let me ask you this. What about the girl that lives in upstate New York? Well, actually, maybe that's not a good example because you guys have more lacrosse up there. Let's just say a girl that lives in New Mexico where she doesn't have a big team. She doesn't have access to a lot of training partners.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe she has 2 to 3 homies that she could call up. How do you get better with limited resources, limited people at that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there are like, and this sounds crazy, but almost like there were times where like maybe I was home and I'm lucky at my sister plays lacrosse. My parents were like very willing to come out and help me if I ever needed help, but like sometimes I would literally like pretend I was in a 1v1 and someone was dodging at me just to get the footwork down. So I think, something you can do is have cones, like put the ball, stack the cones kind of like leaning on it so you can see the ball, but it's kind of covered. Run through it. Maybe you have like another two cones that are defenders that you have to dodge and protect your stick. So I think a lot of it is like creativity, honestly, in terms of like doing things without people. But like making, I don't know, finding literally anything. Maybe there's like sticks outside and you put those as kind of like your obstacles next to the ball that you have to scoop through. I also think like something you were kind of saying, how do you get better at things? And it's like playing them, repping it out. And sometimes like in terms of, the communication and like learning how to learn certain things, I also think for younger girls being a student of the game, like watch as much good lacrosse as you possibly can. Like any especially in the spring when the NCAA season is going on, like any game you can throw up on there's so much like when I was younger, it wasn't easy. Like it wasn't
It wasn't
accessible.
accessible. You didn't have YouTube like that.
Exactly. Where like now, like you can find a way to get almost every game and most of the times like those Big Ten ACC games are free of charge to watch. So it's like it's so accessible now. Like be a student of the game, watch players that you want to shape your game around, watch players that you admire. And I think that's something that I did a lot of when I got to college and it became super accessible.
For sure. The other thing I'll throw in there too is I know this doesn't happen a lot in lacrosse, which is pickup games, right? Like say yesterday I went to the gym and I played an hour worth of basketball, right? I got so many reps. We played half court, we played full court, whatever. We don't do that too much in lacrosse, not in a lot of areas. I would say this though, if you can make this happen, talking to all the players out there, parents as well, coaches as well, throw in some adults in there that have more experience. Throw in some older folks that you can team up with because they're going to show you, hopefully, right? If they have experience, if they're good, they're going to show you the tricks of the trade. They're going to show you, all these little things. They're going to give you little tips. That's going to speed up your growth and your experience level so fast because now you have an experienced eye that's playing with you that can tell you, hey, on the next play, let's do this, let's do that. And basically, this is what happens, like when you get to college as a freshman, right? You got your, 4-year seniors, right? 5-year seniors sometimes that have been there, done that, know what they've seen, know what to expect, and are helping the younger gals, with learning the position, learning a little bit better communication, learning how to slide to this, learning these patterns and stuff like that. That's what I try and, really push on people's like coaches, even in club practices, jump in there and play with the girls, jump in there and play with the kids because now you are giving them, a fast track on the experience as opposed to just like letting them kind of do their own thing, jump in as that experience, OG. You just don't get hurt now, no ACL tears or anything like that as you get older. But I think that's so valuable because I know for me, when I played basketball, we just played with whoever showed up to the court. And so these older guys, they would, pull the younger guys. And, it's funny because I'm in my 30s now, mid 30s. I kind of do the same thing now. I was playing with some young high school guys, and I noticed that they were struggling with the communication aspect. And I noticed they were struggling with seeing, these little patterns on when to set a pick or how to get over a pick or when to switch, right? Again, basketball is a great translation sport. And so after the play, hey, come here really quick. Hey, if he's going to set that pick, I want you to hedge up just a little bit, show until I get over the top. Or for this particular player, because he's so fast, we're going to switch, right? And so those little moments where, this OG is talking to these younger players is super helpful. So that's my, recommendation to a lot of younger players. Now, it doesn't happen a lot in lacrosse, unfortunately, unless you're playing like in a, mixed pickup game. But that's what I would say is super helpful. What are your thoughts about that?
No, I completely agree. I think like a lot of the stuff you learn is from those girls. Like when you get to college, it's from those seniors, from those fifth years, those leaders who have been in these positions and like are speaking from experience. And we did have my like I was saying, my town when I was growing up, a lot of girls would, go to college to play. So we had it was called Summer Sevens that Suffering the youth program ran, and there would be like a middle school age group, a high school age group, and then it was like an open division, and
Okay.
they would always need extra players. So, like kind of what you said, and that was like those girls coming back from college who were getting their stick, like keeping their sticks in their hand, they would always be like, we need five extra girls. Like that's
Yeah,
when
jump
that's
in.
your
Let's go.
opportunity. Jump in, learn from them. Like those girls, it's not judging. Like they know you're in high school. They want to help you. They want like people who love their sport and are there playing it in their free time. Like they want to help people. They want to teach people and they want to
Yeah,
like spread that knowledge and that love for the game that they have. So like when an opportunity presents itself to it's an uncomfortable situation, but putting yourself in those sorts of uncomfortable situations just make you a better player.
for sure, for sure. Well, let's switch topics now. That we kind of is going to dive into. It's all connected, but my question comes from what I've seen from training, specifically on the defensive end. So let me set up this question. For the most part, with younger developing areas, right, where maybe coaches are not as experienced, maybe they are. When we put together a team, okay, generally speaking, we will say that most of the girls that are on the defensive part of the field, we put them there primarily because they can't catch, they can't pass really, they don't have maybe an aggressive, desire to go and score. So we put them on the defensive end, stand in front, don't let them by you. We're going to work slides, all that stuff. Again, my opinion from what I've seen thousands of games. I go to tournaments all the times. One of the biggest things that I notice, especially out here on the West Coast, is that these girls cannot cradle. They cannot, they ain't got no stick skills. They don't have no dodging. They ain't got no footwork, right? They can check people somewhat, and that's even debatable. And it's not everybody, it's not every program, but it's a large majority of kiddos. Okay. How important is developing your stick skills as a defender? Because typically I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it could be different out there. For me and what I've seen, it's just like, yeah, like that girl can't catch, she can't cradle, put her on the defensive end. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, is that the same thing? Do you see that sometimes?
For sure. You do, but I always like when I coach or when I give lessons or, to individuals, group sessions, I always, and mine are mostly defensive focused.
Yeah.
I always start with 10 to 15 minutes of stick work
Mm.
because you talk about like controllables and uncontrollables when you're going out for a team during practice. Why am I not playing? Like, how's your stick work? That's one of the biggest things that you can control.
Oh yeah.
A lot of things that are uncontrollables, but your stick skills, like you don't even need a wall. I would walk around in my living room just tossing up and down the ball, tossing up and down. So like, and even like one-handed, build up that wrist strength. Those are things you could do just outside on your front step or really anywhere. So I would say like that's something, and I always tell players, I'm like, if you want to be a great defender, have the stick skills of a midfielder.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
and I truly believe like the defenders that stick out, in high school when they're getting recruited are the ones who want the ball in the clear and successfully pass it, whether it's like long passes were huge. I would myself, my sister, my dad, we would always be out like every time we would practice together, we always ended with like who like throw a ball, take 5 steps back, like long toss.
Yeah.
Um, because of how important I truly do think that's what sets good and great defenders apart is like those girls they want the ball in the clear because they know they're going to successfully either pass it or run and cradle
Yeah.
successfully over the restraining line. So I see your side because it is true. It's like, oh, they're not good at shooting, they don't have the stick skills, make them
Yeah.
a defender. But like having those things and developing those things are what's going to make you great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. Because that's the same thing I tell all my defenders. It's like, look, yeah, you're playing defense and your objective is to, essentially stop the offense from imposing their will, whether that's through deflections, interceptions, stealing the ball outright, or making them take a bad shot, because that's huge. And we can get into that too. It's like sometimes we're going to play, a defensive set, and it's not, we can't get an interception, we can't get a deflection, but we're going to force them into a bad shot. We're going to force them into a turnover. We're going to make their lives super hard, right? But for my defenders, I'm just like, look, the more polished you are, if you have immaculate footwork, you can get around anybody, because guess what? You get a turnover down here, you still got to clear it up. You know what I mean? You still got to be able to dodge people somewhat, right? And let's just say there are no options to pass and you got to take it coast to coast. And maybe you get a turnover right by the 30, right? You got to take it coast to coast. That's your opportunity, man. That, like, have some abilities to go and put the ball in the back of the net too, because it's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of practice. So this is my thing. I don't know. You tell me if you think this is accurate, or like if you agree with it or not. You can totally disagree with me. I'm like, until you get to high school, dude, play both positions. Play midfield. Go out there and learn some offensive skills, because here's my justification for that. If you're a defender, if you're young, and you're not even in high school yet, you haven't become a defensive specialist, right? I mean, there's some in middle school, right? But you're going to add so many additional skills to your defensive game just by learning some basic offensive concepts. I'm not asking you to be, Sam Apuzzo out there, champion AU. I'm not asking you to be all that. But what I am asking is that you continue to add to your bag of skills. Learn how to dodge a little bit. But then here's the other flip point to that. As a good offensive person, you're also going to learn what the offense likes. And from the defender's perspective, right? Now, I know what they're trying to set up here, because that's what I would try and set up from an offensive perspective. Oh, look, I'm going to attack this gap. I know this girl likes to hedge hard. She likes to slide, draw and dump all day. So from a defensive purposes, maybe I could test that hedge, right? I'm getting in, I'm getting out quickly, right? Oh, this girl, she doesn't really do well off of a pick. So I think there's so many advantages to stepping on the offensive side of the field for at least a season or two, right?
Yeah.
You jump in.
No, exactly. Like the more versatile you can be as a player, the better. It's only going to help you. And kind of to your point, I think something that I learned in college, it's like sometimes as an attacker or defender, maybe the attack brings it in and they're huddling just to talk about attack. Like as a defender, like even though you don't need to be listening and you can kind of go off and do your own thing, what I realize is like the people that listen in, like the attackers that listen in on the defensive huddles, the defenders that listen in on the attacking huddles, like you learn what attackers like and don't like, and then you can exploit that. And same for like the attackers when they're listening to these defensive huddles, like this is what defenders are struggling with. I'm gonna exploit that. I'm gonna attack that.
Yeah.
So it's like as even if all right, say you are just a defender or just an attacker and you're not playing both sides, like learn from one another. Like sometimes I'll ask someone, I'll be like, what's the hardest thing to, go against? Like how, when someone plays you this way or this way, what do you prefer? And like they'll, that I always find that interesting. But like you said, I mean, the more versatile you can be. So if you have the opportunity to get on both ends, like even if it's uncomfortable for you, those are the situations that are going to really develop you as a player.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And again, like I said, do it before you hit high school. You know what I mean? If you're in elementary school or middle school, even in high school, right? Like play some sixes, you know what I mean? Play some 3-on-3. Develop those skills, because they're going to translate 100%. Yeah. I want all my defenders, like if I was running a club team today, I want all my defenders to be as sharp with their stick skills, cradling, their footwork, immaculate. Like they can hit a face dodge, they can spin out of things quickly, they could break down, bounce out, switch the field if they need to. I want all my defenders to be able to do that. I don't want someone on the field that can't go with their left hand or can't go with their right hand. That's just unacceptable to me at a club level. Like, I'm not talking about rec step, right? Like, we'll build that up. Like, rec step, we're developing. But if you say you're an elite club person or you are on varsity and you can't use both hands, dog, what we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, that's just my coaching philosophy. Because like say when I grew up playing basketball, like that's, you have to use your left hand. You have to use your right hand, right?
Yeah.
Like I would spend so much additional time shoring up that deficiency in the off season. More time with my left hand than with my right because I'm right hand dominant, right? Even till this day, when I'm playing wall ball, I spend more time with my left hand than I do with my right hand, just because I need it to be sharp. Because if I'm making feeds to people in training, you know, my left hand sometimes, I'm not even gonna lie, during training, my left hand has not been where it's supposed to be just because I have not put in that time. I'm gonna be honest. See, I gotta follow my own advice. But that's something that you can control. As you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, just control the controllables. You can control your stick work, you can control your footwork. It just takes a little bit of time. So embrace that, discomfort, that awkwardness, right? If you need a trainer, hit up Abby, right? She'll hook you up, right? Embrace it all, and then let's get to work. Let's get better, because your desire is on the other side of the work that you have to do. Like
Yep.
your goal is on the other side of the work that you have to do. It's just that simple. Like figure out what your goal is. Oh, I want more PT, right? I want to get 10 ground balls a game. That's a lot, but I mean, you could do it. What now? Figure out what's the work that you got to put in right now. So we're in the off season right now, right, Abby?
Mhm.
What is your admonition, okay, to players that have these goals for spring 2025? What are we doing
Exactly.
right now?
Exactly what you're saying, like putting in the work. I mean, it's a lot different, like to say, in college, your off seasons the summer, and even like with a summer job, I would have a trainer and I would go lift with him in the morning and then get a run in after that. But I would say like in high school, um, I was fortunate enough to work with the trainer, and like, when I was in those off seasons, I would try to go 2 to 3 days a week. Like even if you're after school, you're tired, but you have an hour of free time, like even if it's 10 minutes a day, like even if you're like, I'm going to play 10 minutes of wall ball 4 times a week and I'm going to do footwork for 10 minutes a day 3 times a week, that is 20 minutes a day for 4 days a week if you make it that.
Yeah.
So, like, it's even putting in 20 minutes a day, just 4 days a week. Like, put in that time when you're tired, because it will pay off, and that's the only way you're going to get better. And I do think, like, going into season, always falling back on that work. Like, I think when you go in unprepared, you're unprepared, and that's in the back of your mind, and you naturally play worse, where you've put in those 20 minutes a day. You trained and you did all the speed and agility work and you lifted a little. I mean, I don't know how prominent lifting is in high school now. I know like
Let me touch upon that. Let me pause you
yeah.
right there, because I want to ask you. This is something I always talk about to my athletes. Now, I'm not a strength coach, so I don't even touch that portions. I can only speak to what's worked for me in the past and what I
Yeah.
currently do in order to get strong. Um, but how important is adding strength, lifting, right? Body weight or external weight. How important is that? Not just for the college athlete, but for really any athlete in
Yeah.
lacrosse.
For sure. I think like in high school, like speaking again, like you said, from my own experience, I'm not certified in this area at all, but for doing it for so many years, I think in high school it was more like body weight, lightweight, but exercises that were like working the muscles that I needed to work to be successful.
Yeah.
And then obviously in college, it got into lifting heavier weights and, really getting stronger. But I do think to play at that highest level, like you want to be at your potential, like you want to reach your potential, you want to be your best. And, by getting stronger, you're getting faster, you're getting quicker, you're getting, just stronger, and injury prevention and all that stuff, I think it really is so important. And that's like the area outside of just like picking up your stick and getting in stick work and going to the field and shooting that a lot of people miss. It's like that strength training, that speed and agility work, that injury prevention, play a huge role in success.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think this is my admonition to folks is that if you're not incorporating some element of strength training 3 to 4 times a week, um, out of season and then also in season as well, because we got to maintain strength,
Yeah.
we're really missing out, And so this is what I would say: talk to your coach, your club coach, right? Because here's my thing. I'm gonna go on a little rant. If you are paying 2,500, 3,000, whatever it is for club, and we're not talking about strength, and we're practicing all the live long day, I think we're doing a disservice. That's just my thing right there.
Yeah.
Like, give me some. You don't have to be the strength coach. Give me some recommendations. Like, hey, talk to me about how I can get strong, because that's only going to improve your game. I mean, you're only going to be way more ferocious. You're only going to be able to protect your body a little bit more and take the physicality that is natural in this game.
Yeah.
I say, like, girls lacrosse is one of the most physical sports that girls can play
Yeah.
outside of like fighting, or girls don't really play tackle football. Even flag football, it's not that physical. Basketball is not that physical. Soccer, it's physical, but it's not that physical. I mean, you got sticks flying all over the place. You got checks and all that stuff. And I want to talk about check because like that's a hot, spicy topic right there. Yeah, get in the weight room. Start with body weight. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't know where to start, hit me up, hit Abby up. Like, there's people we can put you on to. Jay Dyer does a lot of good stuff. There's people out here in my
Yeah.
neck of the woods that can get you started, all that stuff. But you got to incorporate that, because that's going to strengthen you up to run through those ground balls. I mean, core strength is huge too, because now you're going up against this 5'7" girl, 5'8" girl, got a little bit of weight on her, and she's just bodying you. And it's not because she's more skilled a lot of the times. It's just because you don't have the requisite strength to compete at that level.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
So,
I'll try to hook you up. I know something that, now taking on lacrosse full time, something that I do want to do is like start helping younger girls in that area. Like, no, I'm not a certified strength trainer, but like, here is what works for me. Here's like, even like the running aspect, I think is hard.
yeah,
And people want that inspiration. So like if I can, here are the runs that I found worked for me, and like here's the modifications. Like you don't start at 100. Like
no, yeah,
if your goal is a 16-second sprint, all right, let's start at 20 seconds. And because you can't, like, no one can maintain top shape for, if I'm going 3 months of summer, like peak shape, then I'm going to fall off in the fall. Like you want to hit it at that peak
yeah.
time. And I think my freshman year, that was something I learned. It was like learning, like you get in and you're like, whoa, I should have been more in shape, or whoa, like I should have done that run on my own before coming and doing it here. So it's like learning
Yeah.
what workouts work for you. And I do think there's a happy medium. Like there are some people who can go and like max squat and stuff like that. And like I'm definitely not one of those people.
Yeah.
But like I do think that strength training is so important.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Maybe, one of the next interviews I do, I have to bring on a strength coach to just talk about those specific things, specifically geared towards lacrosse, because it is, a field that most kind of just like it just goes over people's heads and things like that.
Yeah.
And they, I think the assumption is like, we don't want our kids to lift too young, because that's going to stunt, development, or it's going to be, bad for their health, or, they're not going to do it the correct way. But
Yeah.
it's so important. Again, body weight is great to start with, single leg movements, especially to help with injury prevention with MCL, ACL, and, any of those lower body extremity injuries, which are very commonplace in girls lacrosse, are super huge. My favorite one, Bulgarian split squats. Let's strengthen up each leg.
Every single Monday.
That's right. But when I say favorite, I mean, it's the worst.
Least least favorite.
Least
Every
favorite.
single Monday, he would be 4 sets of blah 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 Bulgarian split squats, and
Mhm.
I'd be like, no, but this is the
Yes.
exercise that has helped me the most.
Exactly. That single leg movement stuff is going to be super huge. Plyometrics is also huge in terms of like explosiveness, right? A little bit of bounce, all that stuff. There's so many things to talk about that. We'll have to talk about in a later episode.
Yeah.
So, we're kind of getting to the end of our time, but there's a couple of other questions that I wanted to ask you, and I'll start with this. How do you become, and I think I might have asked this earlier, but I want to ask it again. How do you become a better defender, just generally speaking? Because again, there's the communication aspect, right? There's the physical skills aspect, right? Body positioning, checking, interception deflections, all that stuff, picking up ground balls, right? There's the mental aspect of knowing the tactics, right? Setting up traps or, operating highly and efficiently in the systems that you're put in. And when I mention systems, I'm talking about, are you guys running man? Are you running zone? Are you running backers? Are you running like a hybrid of those things, right? How do you become a better defender in general?
That's such a loaded question. I feel like
it's kind of hard because again, like that was my thing about defense and the conversation is like, where do we go with this? I mean, because I think I'd like to have you back on to talk specifically like how do we play defense on free positions? You know what I mean? That's a big like we could bring up film. We can do that again later. And we can dial down into that. But like, say if we're getting into a settled offensive situation, like where do we go? You know what I mean?
I think there's so many different ways. I think like I'll start with, I guess, three. One is like team defense, knowing the team defense, being confident in it and executing it. So like executing a game plan. And I guess that comes when you're a little bit older. I think the hardest part about being a defender is like you don't necessarily get all that glory that comes with scoring a goal. And, as midfielders, like you can make a little bit of a mistake on defense, but then you have that opportunity on offense to go score a goal, go get an assist, go, do whatever, celebrate in those goals. Where, like, if you think about defenders, the only time you're huddling together really to talk is when a bad play happens. So I do think like celebrating small wins for sure is a big thing, but also like something that I've tried to instill in myself is as a great defender, like you're going to have a matchup. You're going to be on one of the best players. Like you are going to get beat. And it's about being able to kind of turn that off mentally. Like, yes, I just got beat, but now turn it into that like troubleshooting mindset. Like, how did she beat me? Why did she beat me? And how am I not going to let her beat me like that again? If she then beat you by doing a Twizzler, like, hats off to her. Like, she beat you 5 different ways, but she never beat you more than once in the same way. And I think it's having that mentality to rebound when maybe a bad play does happen or you do get beat. And then also that like never giving up on a play. Like, and goalies will tell you this, like, even if you're beat underneath, like at the crease, you get beat underneath, staying on their shoulder opposed to just getting off of them and going for the back check, staying on their shoulder, it doesn't let them follow through. Some goalies will tell you it's easier for them to read. So I mean, I could go on and on about like different things about making you a great defender, but like communication's another one. I think like people who fit the best in team defenses are ones who communicate and listen really well. You communicate, you listen, and you stick to a game plan.
Even when it breaks down, right?
Even when it breaks down. And I think another one too, I'll throw this in here, is like being able to adapt on the fly. Like you might go into a game with a game plan and you're like, wow, they game planned against our game plan so dang well. We need to adjust. Who's able to be like, okay, you were supposed to guard her, but now I need to guard her. I'm ready for it. They don't usually run 2-man games. Now they're running 2-man games. Let's get on the same page. We're gonna switch or we're gonna stay on, talk through it. So it's like being able to, if, a common themes, they're beating us the same way every time. How are they beating us? Why is it happening? And how are we not going to let it happen again?
Yeah, I think matchups. Let's talk about that really quick because I think you brought up something very key. If you notice that there's a girl and she's destroying your teammate, but you got her, what are you doing, Abby? Tell me what you do.
That's hard. Because obviously, like, I mean, it's very.
Do you let it fall on the coach? Because really, the coach is supposed to call that.
Yeah.
But let's just say, coach is not saying nothing, and she's giving you guys the keys of responsibility and accountability to each other, right? What do you do in that situation? How do you approach that? Like your teammate is getting killed every single play, right? But hey, I might have a better chance. Let's change some things up. How are you approaching that situation? How are you having that conversation with your teammate?
Yeah, that's a really hard situation, I think. I don't know if I've really been in that situation necessarily where it's like gotten that bad, but I do think like if someone is a little bit off in their matchup, like they are getting beat, like recognizing that and being like, listen, guys, we're gonna send the help early. Like she's beating us. And it's no secret, like, especially at this level, like when you get beat, you know you got beat and it's no secret. So it's like, blah, 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 XYZ is beating us on this day. Like, we're gonna send the help early to them and like we got your back. Obviously, like if it gets too bad, it would usually get to the point where like either they notice or someone else is like,
Yeah.
all right, like that does
Let's
happen.
switch. Yeah.
There are days like, hey, like she's beating you, like let me take this possession, like you take this possession on someone else, I got her, or
Yeah.
like things like that are good
And
ones that could
that
work.
that that comes from a system of trust already built up. You know what I mean?
Like
Yeah.
it's nothing against a player. It's like
No.
some people are like on every single game, but then like every single amazing player has one or two off games here and there, and like that's okay.
Yeah, and I'll say it like this: is like, look, I've had to call people like, hey man, can you get this guy really quick? Because dude, I'm gassed. Like he's just got my number.
Yeah.
He's too shifty. He's too quick for me. You know what I mean? Like I have not run my sprints. So like there's been that where I've initiated it. And then there's been some times where it's like, hey man, let's try this. Let's see how this works. You know what I mean? Because right now he's got your number. And that's okay. Going back to your point, I'm going to lose some matchups. I'm going to get beat, right? But it's looking at it, assessing it, and then coming up with the next plan. Like we're adjusting. It's a game of chess, and we're always making adjustments. You do this, I do this. I do this, you do that. You know what I mean? And that's like one of the best mindsets that a defender can have. I always tell my kids, you want to be kind of like a duck. And they're like, a duck? Why do you want to be like a duck? I was like, because when water hits a duck, it just rolls off the back of the duck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got to let it roll off the back of you because now we got to get back into play. We got 30, 40 more minutes of the game. You know what I mean? We cannot focus on that single play. We'll go back and watch it and learn from it. We got to get back in this thing. So you kind of got to be a little delusional like a defender. It's like, okay, you beat me 10 times, but I don't care. I'm going to beat you the next time. You know what I mean? You are not going to beat me. Like,
Exactly. And like that swagger, that confidence, and we would call it goldfish memory. I think it's either
I
goldfish
like that.
it's either 3 seconds or 7 seconds. It's like they
Yep.
only ever remember something for no longer 3 to 7 seconds. So it's like, okay, you have these next 3 seconds to be like beat yourself up about it, and then like we need you for the next play. So, and I think that everyone at the high level has that same mentality, like we're gonna adapt. Like if someone's beating us, we're gonna adapt and we're gonna change things. But yeah, it's a lot of trust and having each other's backs at like college and pro level.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Let's talk about this. I got a couple more questions. And are we good on time?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask this question. Has it ever gotten really chippy during a game? Maybe a girl talking a little bit of smack, maybe a girl going after somebody's head, and you just got to kind of like, okay, hold on now. I'll put them in check. Most of the people that I've had on has been like, nah, we're all nice to each other. We all know each other. We're like friends and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But let's be real. Like some girls, some players, they be going after some heads. They be, I don't know.
I would say it's just more of like a competitive thing. Like they're in the heat of the moment, like things get competitive and like we are all such good friends that I think like no one ever takes it personal and like
Yeah.
that like, we're down 7-6, like people are doing anything possible to get the ball back. So I think it just like stems from a competitive mindset and it's just like being as competitive as the person next to you.
Have you ever talked trash to anybody?
Honestly, not really. I mean, like we joke around on the field, but
You seem like such a nice person. I couldn't even imagine what
yeah,
that would look like.
no,
You're like,
no.
hey, yeah, your socks, they're ugly. No, I
Yeah,
mean, like, that's no, I couldn't
no.
imagine. No, I asked too because obviously I've coached high school teams, high school girls, and a lot of the complaints I would get, it's like, oh, you know what she did? She cussed me out. She called me this. She made fun of my hair. I feel like that happens a lot more in like high school stuff than it does like in, college and all that good stuff. But, I just wanted to get your perspective because it's like, how do you deal with a trash talker? How do you deal with a girl on offense? It's like, you can't guard me. You like, she talking all that smash, she talking all that game. How
Yeah.
do you deal with that?
I like laugh at it. I almost think it pumps me up even more when people like I'm like that's what you have to do to like try to beat us. Like we're just playing and this is what you have to resort to kind of thing. So I just laugh it. I would laugh in that scenario if that happened. Like I would personally laugh it off. Like I would think it was funny. Um, but I do think those are things that like in one ear out the other because like you letting them affect you is like exactly what they want. And then you're letting them win. So I
Yeah.
think like in one ear out the other, like you if you're focusing on that, you're not focusing on the game and what's at hand. So just kind of like laugh it off in one ear out the other. Like don't and I don't give it back either. I don't think like it
Yeah.
necessarily obviously don't get, tossed around out there, but like I don't think, I they could take you out of your game. Like don't let it take you out
Yeah.
of your element because that's what they're trying to do.
Psychological warfare is a real thing. And so
Yeah,
it's not, I would say it's less common on the girl side. Definitely dudes do it a lot more. They talk a lot of
for
smack
sure.
about stuff. Uh, but it's important to know how to handle those things if they ever do come up. I feel like, again, it happens more in the high school tournament circuit, high school season than it does like say college and pros and stuff like that because everybody knows
Yeah,
each
not
other. It's
really.
like hold up, like we just went out to lunch yesterday. What are you talking about? Like no one's gonna do that. You know what I mean?
No,
But for those girls that are like, say you do encounter that, exactly what you said is like in one ear and out the other. Who cares? Like I don't even care. Like you could talk all that smack, you could do all that jib jabba. You know what I mean? And you could score on me a couple of times, sure, but I'm gonna get you right. I'm going to lock you down. My team is going to play amazing defense. We're going to force you into a bad shot. So, can you talk about that really quick? Is like we don't get a deflection, we don't get an interception, we don't get a turnover caused by a check, right? We don't get a save. How important is it to force a bad shot?
I'm glad you brought this up because this is something that I don't think I fully like came to the realization of until my later years of college. And I think it's something like that can be more praised or like not even more praised, but like
I think
I
it should be more praise because, like,
yeah,
if you're imposing your defensive will and you're not allowing the offense to get to their spots, dude, you won.
exactly. And like that's what I think a lot of like younger girls look at it as like my player took a shot and that's like she beat me. Like even though
Mm.
that goal doesn't go in, it's like she got a shot off and my goal is to completely stop her from shooting when like your goal a lot of time as defenders is not to not let them take any shots. Like
Yeah,
offense
at that level, it's they're going to shoot. You know what
they're
I
gonna
mean?
shoot, but it's like what shots are you giving up? And like those low angle shots like that are easy save for a goalie, like those are exactly what you want to give up and like you did your job and that's the shot you want them to take. So I do like I think that happens 10 times more than a caused turnover, an interception, a shot wide. Like it
That's like
happens
80% of the game, probably more,
is
right?
forcing bad angles and like
Yeah.
playing attackers to where they're at a low angle.
Exactly. I always tell, my defensive units, my defensive players, let's force them east to west. Let's not force them north to south. You know what I mean?
Yep,
Um, because now they're going towards the middle of the cage. It's very hard for the goalies to say they've got a bigger angle, bigger target space right
exactly.
there. But if you're forcing them out and wide and their hips are going away from the cage, they're not going to be able to get off a good rep. From the offensive speaking, it's like I want to get my hips back towards cage, right? I want to force back in towards the middle. I'm going to get the best opportunity to see more of the cage, right? Again, that's what happens when you play offense. You understand that. So go play some offense, defenders. Go understand that whole thing. You'll become a better defender. But now force them out, force them wide. You know what I mean? Don't allow them to do what they want to do. And that's easier said than done in some circumstances, right? They're going to score their points. But let's make those adjustments. It might come down to a 10-9 game. And at the last moment of that, you made the adjustment and you forced them into a bad shot. And your
Exactly.
goalie made a save or it went off the pipe and you
Yeah.
win. They don't tie it up. So that, okay. I know I said the last couple of things, but because I want to talk about your training really quick. Checking, because that's a hot, spicy topic. It changes from elementary school to middle school to high school to club to college. And it
Yeah.
changes from West Coast to East Coast, all that stuff. Whenever I post a video specifically on defense, and it's not even really about defense, it's like just a clip of kids playing one on one. pick-up game and say the girl goes horizontal, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my comment section blows up with these IG refs. It's not even funny. Like if you want
Yeah.
to get some views, post something on defense. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And again, it's not what I teach in terms of like good defensive positioning and all that stuff and how we hold our stick and all that, but it is a reality of the game. You know, speak
Yes.
to me on how do we hold our stick and how does that change from lower level lacrosse to higher level lacrosse? What you guys can get away with, because there's the letter of the law, right?
Yeah.
There's what the rules say, but then there's what we actually do in the game.
Yeah. I honestly like I haven't like I can speak from when I was playing, but I don't know if the rules have changed since. But I know like all throughout, rec and club and high school, like if you weren't straight like a tree,
Yeah,
you were getting called. Like the
it's
second,
pretty much the same thing. Yeah,
yeah. In college, you get like a little bit more leeway where like you could be semi-horizontal as long as it's not like a cross check. Like the second
yeah.
there's that extension of arms,
You're
like
not displacing the offensive person, right?
exactly. But like they kind of come into you and you're like this.
You're
It's
holding your position. Yeah,
And then obviously in AU, like we get like there's less rules around that and like there's not like it's very more loose and free playing and there's
yeah.
not many fouls called until it's like a dangerous level of play kind of thing. I don't know like technically like are you supposed to be exactly straight up? Like you are able to be horizontal, I feel like in college and
Well, I would say this: the rule is not this. Like you can't do this. That's
right.
typically the rule.
You get away with
But
like that though.
well, exactly. So there's a letter of law, and then there's what's actually allowed.
Yep.
Now, talk to me as an offensive person, right? That happens. Boom, in my arm, in my side. How do we deal with that? We're not getting the call,
Yeah.
right? How do we deal with that? Just mentally.
Yeah, no, that's hard. I think like going back to what we talked about before, it's like the controllables versus the uncontrollables. The refs and not getting those calls are that's an uncontrollable and like those are things you can't focus on, so attack them harder. Or like if they're being completely horizontal on you, like the side that doesn't have their stick head, like attack them there. Like they have less leverage on that side and like most of the times when you are completely horizontal, you're lunging and you're off balance. So keep redodging, like keep going at them because like eventually one, it's either gonna get called or two, like you're gonna beat them.
Exactly. So having really good footwork is important. Um, Flopping out of that. What's your thoughts about flopping? Is it good? Is it bad? Or is it kind of a mixture of both? And then I'll give you my thoughts.
I'm like as a defender, I hate it because you could be completely straight up or like it wasn't you weren't displacing the player, but like with that like head jolt backwards or like their movement, sometimes a non-foul can turn into a yellow card
Oh yeah.
because of how exaggerated it is. But do I like
Really quick? I'm sorry to cut you off. I actually found a clip of you getting a yellow card from holding your position and the girl flying back and jolting her head and all that good stuff.
really?
It it I will say this: it wasn't a clear cut displacement. It was you holding that position like we talked about, and her just flying back, you know,
Yeah.
with a lot of passion and a lot of energy.
What was it from this year?
Oh, it was. I think it was. I gotta find the clip. I'll send it to you. But I was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I had to. That's why I'm asking. I was like, what do you think about flopping? Because from
Those are
my perspective, say it again.
those are frustrating because it's like
Yeah,
you're so then you have to like not play your game basically. And I think like there are games in college that you go into like knowing this girl, and this girl are floppers. Like we really need to hold our positioning, and you do hold your positioning, and they do it, and like if the refs are buying into it that day, like you're kind of like, but it, like that's to that point is like you got to adjust then.
Let me
If
ask you. Let me ask you this: what makes a good flop? How do you sell it? I mean, you're not really a flopper because you're on the
I'm not
defensive
like an
end.
offensive player, really, I don't know. Like,
I will give you this. I'd say a good flop requires you to throw your head back, to hit off your goggles,
yeah,
and to hold your head. That's a good flop.
yeah. I yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it definitely like it gets me sometimes. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah, yeah. Now
doesn't work.
I would say on the defensive end, not necessarily flopping, but let's talk about taking charges. I don't
Yeah,
see that often, but yeah, I think it's very valid, especially if you have a very aggressive attacker who is lowering their shoulder, lowering their head, and just running through. I think training taking charges, especially at the lower level, you don't see this really at the higher levels too much, but it does happen, especially in the midfield too. How do you prepare or how do you train taking charges? And is that something you did in college?
this is an interesting take too, because I don't think like it's worth it because to train a charge, because yeah, like someone could back into you and you can fall down to take the charge. But if that charge isn't called,
You're on the floor.
it's a you're on the floor and they're going to goal. So I personally like if they overpower you and you fall, like that's one thing, but I never thought it was like worth it to give up the body positioning and fall backwards in hopes of a charge call because most of the time, like
And yeah,
I'm
how often are you getting those calls actually?
not off.
Probably not as much as say an offensive flop or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So it's not very likely. So like if you have good body positioning and you're being displaced, like it's gonna get called. So I don't really think it's worth it to like I think it's worth it to just teach good body positioning, but not to teach falling back because
Yeah. Now, if you fall back, like this is what you're saying though, like say if she goes so hard and
yeah,
you just like bam, you just get taken out.
yeah,
Sure. Yeah, because that's a
yeah,
whole different thing. Now, in that situation, this is what I would tell players. Look, sometimes you need to exaggerate a little bit to get it on the ref's mind.
for
Hopefully,
sure.
coach is doing their job and really letting the ref know, like, hey, like if you're going to call this offensive foul, I mean, this defensive foul this way, I better get the other call on the other side as well. You know what I mean? She's barreling through our defenders. You know what I mean? She's lowering her shoulder, she's lowering her head, she's not even looking, right? And she's running through double teams. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, and you're calling us for the hold? No, I don't think so. Like, you got to have to call that both ways. So, again, this is the psychology of officiating too. I got to kind of put it in your mind. Like, hey, ref, she's lowering her shoulder. She's going straight through my chest. You know what I mean? Like, that's also the experience that comes with the game. Having a conversation during a dead ball. Hey, ref, she's lowering her shoulder. Like, she's just running through me. She's not even dodging around me. You know what I mean? And I'm holding my position. I'm playing good defense, but I'm getting called every single time. Can you help me out? Like, help me. What are you seeing? Because like that's not helping me. I don't know. Is that some of the conversations that you've ever had with the ref during a game?
definitely. I think like obviously like at the college or the high school level, it comes from the coach. Like I
Yeah.
would talk to the refs, but from the professional level, like if you're a captain in AU, like it's your job to be the spokesperson for your teammates. So there are times where like one of my attackers has been like, I'm constantly getting like this. Can we watch them in walling or can we watch them in this? And like it's definitely like, okay, let's bring it to their attention.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's super huge because if you could do it in a respectful, controlled manner,
Exactly.
you're going to do better. Now, if you're yelling at the ref, you know what I mean, coach or player and parents, you should not say a thing. You know what I mean? Like sit down in the stands, let the
Oh
coach
yeah.
do their job. They'll be talking to your players. They'll be telling them what to do. Like if you want to talk to your players that bad or your kid, go become the coach. That's just my thing. Like we don't
Yeah.
talk to players. You know what I mean? Give them kudos, high fives, like make some commentary in the stands. Keep it respectful, keep it G, but relax. Um, but you guys can do that as a high school player, middle school player. Just ask the ref very calmly, control your emotions, especially if you didn't get the play going your way, which will happen in a game. And the refs are not out to get you. Okay. Like that's the thing. oh, she just doesn't like me. She's gonna get me. I mean, every now and then that may be true. Who knows? Maybe a small town, you didn't cut their grass, you're supposed to. Who knows? I don't know. But for the most part, that's not the case. Talk to them respectfully, talk to them calmly, ask them questions.
Definitely.
Hey, how are you calling this? How are you seeing this? Just so I know. And then adjust your game. Because here's the other big thing that I see. Let's just say you get a foul in the midfield. And you've probably seen this. A girl drops her head. It's like, oh my gosh. But remember, there's free movement. Like you, the
Yeah.
offensive girl can go. Like,
Yeah.
why are we not like, okay, that foul happened, whatever. I checked.
Keep
They
playing.
got get back into position. You know what I'm saying? I mean, do you see that a lot?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, I obviously people adjust to it, but like I do, like sometimes that will happen. And I'm like, no, like don't go behind, don't keep playing, like keep going.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's huge. I've got a quick chat. Thanks, Coach. Thanks, Abby. We'd like another session to hear about DN free position. Yeah, for sure. We might have to set that up again. Okay, so let's get to the last couple of questions because it's 12:22. We went over our time just a little bit.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Talk to us about your training because I know you mentioned that you're doing lacrosse full time now.
Mhm.
What does training look like for you? How did you get it started? What are you currently doing? Do you have any camps, clinics, off-season training coming up? Are you coming to California? Are we running a defensive clinic together? A couple of days? Let us know.
Yeah, well, I'm really on week one of this whole lacrosse full time. So California is like the goal spot. That's where I want to, get a clinic set up. And so I hope to run a D clinic in California, maybe a little draw circle clinic too.
Yeah.
I'll be doing like definitely a ton of group sessions, a lot of group sessions, a lot of clinics. But I do also like I would love I'm not at this point yet because I need to obviously develop my website and stuff like that. But I definitely want to also offer something as like a mentorship program, like
Sure.
set up times to have conversations like this. And like if, just obviously it's no professional advice or opinions, but like if you have a question defensively, like from my experience, what's worked for me, what are some drills that I can do to train? So just, helping guide younger players to, hit their goals and continue to get better. So I'm ready to hit the ground running with it.
Yeah, I would just say this. It is professional advice because you are a pro. So there you go. You
Yeah.
got access right now to a lacrosse professional. You've also played on Team USA, right?
I've been a part of training camps.
Okay, training camps. So got you.
Yeah,
I thought I
but
seen you
I
post
haven't like
before.
officially played on any of the teams yet.
Gotcha.
Fingers
Okay, cool.
crossed. I'm hoping to.
Fingers crossed. We working, baby. We working. Awesome. Well, if you guys are watching, we got a couple more people or three people, two people on the chat right now. If you're looking to train, you're in the New York area.
I am. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island.
You're all East Coast. You could access all those areas.
I'm really hoping to do a ton of like pop-ups. Like I want to get to California, I want to get to Florida,
Oh yeah,
a ton of different other places too. So
for
to be
sure.
announced.
Yeah, so we'll work on the California piece, like I mentioned. I got to send you those pictures of the place. Awesome. Abby, Bosco, you have been amazing. Thank you so much for jumping on the Zoom. It's been a phenomenal conversation. For those of you guys who are watching live, we're going to clip this up, or I'm going to clip this up. I'm going to put it on my Prime Lacrosse YouTube page. Definitely subscribe to that page if you have not already. Go and follow Abby Bosco on Instagram, ABBYBOSCO. Correct? I got that right?
Yes.
Follow her on Instagram. Check out all her upcoming training and all that good stuff. Watch her highlights. Go back and watch 2022, 2023 season in Maryland. It's some good stuff. I didn't bring up the clips. I have a clip queued up. I'll send it to you later. There's two clips I have
Okay.
queued up, but we didn't get the chance to watch it. It's okay. But next time, let's do it again. Let's talk about free positions and play defense.
Perfect.
All right. Any closing thoughts, words?
No, thank you for having me. This was awesome. I enjoyed it.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, I'm gonna give you a call on Instagram right after, and we'll figure some stuff out. But thank you
Yeah.
so much, Abby. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Don't mistake.